All right. Welcome to the Draftkings player pool builder for this week. It is, I'll be honest, it's a weird feeling week to me from a quarterback standpoint because I'm going to want to play a lot of like singles and doubles, mainly doubles. And there's like extreme high end quarterbacks, extreme low end, not a lot of mobility, I would call it necessarily. So you're not looking for that extreme rush upside. There's no like Jeff Sims style player. It feels like you're either paying north of 8,500 or south of 6,500, which is just awkward. I'm used to it being all in the sevens, maybe eights, and it's just very high low in this spot. There is a ton of injury news that's going to be extremely pertinent to what we're going to do throughout this week. Um, it really does feel like a 4 wide receiver week to me because the high end wide receivers are immensely better than the um, running backs that I'm confident in. So, man, this is a weird week. It feels like a natural build to me that you're going to play 2 running backs, 4 wide receivers, and 2 quarterbacks. And you're probably going to play 1 high end and 1 low end quarterback or 2 low ends and stack them somehow. So that's kind of the way it feels. But let's talk about quarterbacks first out the gate. So core play, top play on the board for me, depending on injury news, but top play on the board at the top of the board. Connor Weigman. I want the rushing upside 82, 111, 98. I like that extremely well. He's thrown the football pretty well, multiple TD passes in most of his games. And TCU's not exactly a good defense. We just saw them get absolutely roasted by the Utah guys. They are struggling to stop the run pretty heavily. So I do expect Weigman to have a great floor from that standpoint. Has good stack partners, and he's playing pretty well. So I like his upside the most of the people at the top with his floor because the matchup is the best of the people at the top. That makes him the most likely candidate to be a core play at the top of the board. I really do like Weigman this week. He's definitely going to be a guy that gets featured. He's getting so many carries and so much yardage in there at this spot. All right, core play number 2. I like this kid, man. I mean, he's just looked good, and at 5K, he's my favorite spin down option. I think 3x is all but a guarantee, with 4x or 5x even fully in play. Vanderbilt has not exactly been great on defense. And if we buy into the fact that Vanderbilt's going to be able to score 31 points, and if Kentucky's going to score 22, you figure Boley's probably going to be involved in 1 to 2 touchdowns. He has sneaky rushing upside. Yes, he didn't run very well against South Carolina, but we've kind of been on this stretch with Cutter Boley since that Georgia game where we've had 15, 20, 38, 9 against Auburn. That's tough defense. And then 13, 14. Like, I'll take this 14 even. Even if we got the Florida score, I would still take it for 5K. It's not it's not going to kill you. But we have upside for far more. And he has one great stack partner. He's my preferred spend down option, although there are great spend down options overall. I'm going to want exposure. I don't think Vanderbilt's particularly great on defense. So I'm perfectly happy playing Cutter Boley. I don't think anybody that they've ended up playing. I think 20 points out of Boley is not going to surprise me in any way, shape, or form. Now, for my money, the key, one of the main, if not the key piece to this entire slate, especially at quarterback, is Devin Dampier. So his rushing numbers have gone down, 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 and down. He is extremely banged up. So he got banged up at Baylor, questionable for the tilt against that. I had heard he was leaning towards not being available against Kansas State this weekend. If Dampier plays, it kind of changes a lot of things for me. Um, I was hoping he wouldn't play, and in which case, because see, they're saying he was a question mark. That's kind of what I had heard. If Dampier was announced out, which I hate that this game's at 3 p.m., Bird Ficklin would jump to my number one play of the week, and it's not close because his rushing upside is insane. And he started taking snaps away from Dampier. So if I got word that Ficklin was starting, Ficklin's my number one play at 7,200. It's not close because he's going to give me 150 yards and a rush, 100 yards of rushing and a touchdown. So I'm starting with a 20-point lead already. That's what I'm saying, Myron. I want it to be Bird Ficklin season. You know what I mean? That man's got the most 1960s Mississippi seersucker suit lawyer butt name that any player has ever had in Bird Ficklin. You do not want to challenge Bird Ficklin in the Mississippi court of law. That's what it feels like, right? That's what it literally just screams that. But yeah, so if it gets proven that Dampier, I'll keep an eye on this, but it's really affecting the way that I build. Because Ficklin would end up becoming my number one guy, and I would be all over that. So I don't feel like building sets of lineups that include Ficklin versus don't include Ficklin. So I'm waiting to kind of have a decision on that based on what I'm seeing now, and I'll double check some of my guys and see where they're at. But it seems like Ficklin might not be an option, in which case I'm not going to play Dampier in this spot. Tournament plays for me. I know y'all gonna think I'm crazy. I like Arch this week. So in matchups that are easy, we see what Arch did to Vandy, by the way. Hint, hint, Cutter Boley, hint, hint. I think 25. I wouldn't even be shocked if a 25 out of Cutter Boley this week. I like the kid. I like the stones on him. I feel you. I feel you, Myron. We're gonna get to Wayshawn, Wayshawn Parker. You got me thrown off with the USC running back Wayman Jordan versus Wayshawn Parker. Yeah. So I think Arch is live for 30 in this spot, 35, because Arkansas is absolutely terrible on the back end. I do think he's played better. I would expect for 300 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. I think that he has the capability this week to have 300 yards passing and 3 touchdowns with probably 30 to 40 yards rushing and another 1 to 2 touchdowns. So I would say he comes in at the lowest ownership of the top end for good reason. But I think taking shots on Arch is smart given the relative matchup in this spot. Now, the other guy, I'm mentioning this. And like I said, when I was talking about it the other day, I'm going to mention this just for the fact that he projects very well. And it's all based on rushing upside. And if you want to play Kyron Jones, go right ahead. I think I'm just going to stay away. I might play. So in 20, he would not be in any of my expensive teams. I can tell you that right now because there's 0% chance he's going to win a tournament, in my opinion. In 20 max, just to cover my bases in case he gets 20. I'd rather play Cutter Boley 10 times out of 10. I might play 10%, so like 2 out of 20. I really don't know that I even want to play any, but like I feel like the rushing floor is just enough that even at 11 points, it really is not going to kill you. I don't know. I don't like it, man. I don't like it. The price is too tempting, but I kept him in the pool. He's a tournament pivot for me. Granted, I think he comes in far too owned compared to where I would like him to be. All right, rest of the pool. Try to keep it fairly tight. We talked a while, but we talked about 4 guys so far, in fairness. Well, 5 if you include Mr. Bird Ficklin. Diego Pavia, is on an unreal tear right now. So I think playing him is smart. I think playing Cutter Boley and Pavia together makes a ton of sense if you can get this game to shoot out. The upside is through the roof. The floor is not going to help whatsoever. That's why I think the ceiling is Pavia's, the floor goes to Manning for me, in my opinion. But I'm more than happy to play Pavia. He projects as the best play on the slate as far as like raw points. I just prefer Wiegman up here at the top. And otherwise, notice I just skipped Fagnano, even though I will be playing some. I'm just going to point that out. I'm going to, if Virginia Tech beats Virginia this year, Myron, I am going to be savagely upset. That might be one of those situations that I might just bet Virginia Tech, and that way I'm happy either way. Kind of like last week with JMU and App State. I just bet App State money line and then figured as long as we win, I'm happy. And if they win, I made money. I'm going to go with that with the UVA game, I think, with Virginia Tech. I think this play is – I took him out of this pool. But I have to mention this because there's a legitimate shot, in my opinion, that he throws for 350 and 4. So I think slate breaking ability is there. I just don't like his rush. He has no rushing upside, in my opinion. And the floor isn't there. And he only throws to one target. And I would rather just play the one target and the one, like the guys around him. Although I do think there is viability to that play. He should come in at lower ownership, but I don't know. It might end up being over-owned for my money personally. All right, looking at the cheapies. So I'm skipping that mid-range personally for the most part. Now, granted, we're gonna play a little bit of stacks here and there. If you feel it, go for it. I think Fafita, I'm looking for matchups. Fafita, great matchup. 6,400. I like it. He has one good stack partner. No rushing upside. This is the one I debated taking out, but he's priced appropriately. Good stack partner. Facing a Baylor team that can't stop anything. And he has a questionable run game around him. So I think something like this Colorado game is in play. But I do prefer spinning down to Boley. By comparison, Mensa, similarly, I think you keep Mensa in the pool. North Carolina's pretty good at stopping the run. I would not want to play their run game for Duke. And Duke's pass rate over expectations through the roof. He has zero rushing capability, which is what scares me. But I would expect that 300 yards and 3 touchdowns is in play for this Duke offense. Question is, does Bill take away Barcate because Barcate's their best weapon? Bill can take away weapons, but there are a pass funnel defense. North Carolina very much so is a pass funnel defense. I'm fine playing Mensa +2, but you have to play him stacked. The price is fine for it. Like I said, I think it's a week to pay all the way up or all the way down. Yeah, I don't disagree with that, Myron. I think it's a weirder one because of Sims. So like Sims' legs give him that floor. So like playing Pavia naked makes a ton of sense. Playing Drones naked makes a lot of sense. And Drones is a very similar play, in my opinion, to Jeff Sims. Jeff Sims in a bad matchup. We played Jeff Sims because he was in a good matchup. Now, I didn't want to even talk about this, but I'm going to. Duke sucks defending the pass, so I don't think Gio Lopez is out of the pool. Is he my favorite down here? No. I think I like Boley. If you told me to pick between Drones and Lopez, I think I would go Lopez because I actually do like stack partners for Lopez. Like, I think you can play them. And Duke's so terrible on the back end. Like, there's upside here. There is upside. So I have interest. Same thing. Miller Moss, I have interest. How he has scored a rushing touchdown, I don't know. He's immobile as crap, but SMU is an awful pass defense. Now, granted, I went all in on Carson Beck the week they played SMU. Carson Beck ended up playing like doo-doo. So like Cheeks, but so I'm not going to go all in on Miller Moss. Like I said, I prefer Cutter Boley personally to Moss, but I don't think there's any reason that you can't play Miller Moss, that you can't play Cutter Boley, that you can't play Darian Mensah. I think that you can't play Gio Lopez. All of them have fantastic matchups down here and guys that you can stack up and be perfectly happy with. And they're very condensed route trees that you're going to want to be able to play. So I'm leaning into matchups, but I think you just need to mix and match your stacks in that sense. And similarly, like it feels there's so much volume passing on this slate. Like Beltcamp's going to throw the ball 40 times, maybe 50 times. He's probably going to throw for 300 yards. And then it's just a question of how many times does he get home. He's got an amazing floor of 20 plus points. So I have no problems with Beltcamp either. Like Sawyer Robertson's in a similar boat. He's going to just sit there and chuck it. So like there is volume passers all over the place. And I think it's very easy for me to have said, oh, hey, we're just going to play, we're going to play a whole bunch of these guys, a whole host of them, which you are. I mean, point blank, you're going to play like Sawyer Robertson's a great play, double stacked. He's perfectly great in that sense because he has very limited route tree and it's very easy to get to. Fagnano has an amazing matchup. Weigman has a good matchup. Weigman just is the one, like there's only a very limited amount of guys that have rushing capability in a good matchup. Weigman's one. Weigman is the top play for me. Cutter Boley, I think has rushing upside. I also just like the kid, so I'm just going to buy into it. And I don't think Vandy's a tough matchup, so I would buy into that as well. And I think he can get me a positive yardage in the run game. So I'm interested. That's kind of where we're at with the quarterback position. Running back, I feel very tight and very good about this spot. So we just talked about a ton of quarterbacks. We're about to talk about very little running back. Tops on the slate with a bullet, not even close. Cam Edwards for me. FAU absolutely sucks on defense. They can't tackle. They can't stop anything. Edwards had a down game against Duke, but still managed to get there because of his pass game work. And that was against Duke, which has a very good run defense. I think something north of 20 with the potential to go over 30 is well within the range of outcomes. I think this team leans on its superstars. There's two of them. They're both core plays. So I like playing Edwards, no doubt about it. We're going to throw Edwards in here. Bing, bang, boom. No doubt about it. Edwards gets a nod in this spot. Now, going into also the injury market per se of what we need to talk about. If Mark Fletcher ends up being out, this is extremely important because Virginia Tech's absolutely terrible on defense. They're saying that he's trending in the right direction. I don't think they need him. So if he doesn't play, and that game is an early game at 11 a.m., so we'll know. If he's not going to play, hopefully we get word earlier and he's not just questionable. Gerard Pringle got a ton of opportunity last week. And he's looked good. He had scored a touchdown in every single game he had touched the football this season. And he has scored, he had 100 yards last week. So he would be a core play for me. He's him and Edwards by far and away the top two backs for my money. If we get word that Mark Fletcher's out, I love Pringle in this spot. All right. Now, that's where I'm at for cores. Let's talk GPP options, which some of this comes down to injury news and notes, right? A lot of injury news here this week. And it sounds like he will, Devin Dampier starts, he ain't running. So I want Wayshawn Parker against Kansas State. Kansas State down bad. Everybody's out. Give me Wayshawn Parker. I like Pringle a ton. Yeah. Wayshawn Parker here, I think 100 yards and a touchdown seems like a pretty good formality. Do I think he gets the 30 points again? No, probably not. Nakari Rogers steals too much work. Bird Ficklin's going to get some run in the backfield. But I do think Wayshawn Parker in this spot is going to get you 100 yards ish and a touchdown. I think he is a very good pivot or tournament option in this spot to have a ton of upside. So he is a guy that I will look towards, no doubt about it. And then also, we're going to build out a little team here. You'll see where I'm going with this. Actually, here, let me go get my boy Cutter Boley because I actually have it off to the side there. There we go. Okay. So other running back wise, I think the second best tournament option, and what I will tell you is that I'm going to have to mix and match this a little bit to try to figure it out. And I'm going to have to just make a decision at the end of the day. Some Baylor running back, some Arizona running back. Baylor is so terrible against the run. Somebody is going to win you this slate out of these three. Quincy Craig, Ishmael Mahdi, and Kedrick Riscano. One of these three is going to win you the slate, in my opinion. Because I think one of them probably goes for north of 20. I'm on the Riscano train. That's my preferred option. That's my highest projected of the group. But I think because it's split, it's kind of hindering their projection. At 4,200, that's my favorite option personally. And it's the one that I'm most likely to go to. So I'm kind of out on Craig. I don't think Mahdi's good enough, and I think Riscano has the best capability to score on any given touch. And I think that the coaching staff likes him the most, so he's the most likely to get double-digit touches. Double-digit touches could legitimately be 150 yards and 2 touchdowns against this team. So I'm going to buy into Kedrick Riscano personally, and that's going to be my option, my punter option in this spot at 4,200. He's a guy that I like as a pivot off of Gerard Pringle if I needed to get there. So that's where I'm at with that one. And then last 3 guys in the pool. Oh, okay. Let's start with this because if CJ Donaldson is out, it matters because he gets all that. So he looked good in practice. I don't know why they would end up playing him against Rutgers. Rutgers is absolutely trash. So if he's alive, I'm not interested in Bo Jackson. I don't think he can be. I still think that 100. This is going to sound very much so like my Malachi Fields thing. I swear to goodness, he's going to get 100 plus, like 150 and 2 touchdowns eventually. It's coming. That 30-point game is coming. If Donaldson is active, I'm not super interested in Bo Jackson because I think they split work early and then they're out of the game in the third quarter, early second quarter, maybe halftime. If Donaldson's out, I have interest in Jackson as the second best back behind Edwards from a raw point standpoint. Because I think a 30-point game's in there, just like I think a 30-point game's in Edwards in this spot. But I think Edwards gets pushed a lot further and has the capability for a lot more. Jackson's going to get the floor a lot easier. But they're both better plays than Wayshawn Parker in that same situation. Now, if Donaldson's in or out, I prefer Riscano at the bottom. But if I'm taking a punt, I like Isaiah West to get a lot of work in the second half in this one. I prefer him to Peoples. I think they'll save Peoples, especially if Donaldson's out. Peoples will probably get his 5-7 carries. I think Isaiah West could push for 15 carries in this spot. I wouldn't be shocked at 100 yards. So I think Riscano, if you don't want to mess with the Arizona situation, you're going to Isaiah West, and that's your punt option. Yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at with that. But I think you do want some limited exposure to Ohio State in this spot, depending on who's active and who's not. And then finally, I feel like I talked about a lot of guys, but I've literally talked about 6 running backs, and I've only got 7 in my pool. I think Quintravian Wisner is a hell of a good play at 5,900. He's been awful. But, and now what's making me nervous is this Mississippi State game, because Mississippi State sucks against the run too, and he still only averaged 3.4 a carry. Still, Arkansas is awful against the run. Even LSU was able to run the football. I think taking some shots on Wisner is perfectly acceptable. Perfectly acceptable. So I have no issues going to Wisner. That defense is kind of boo-boo cheeks. But like I said, it comes down to injuries. Like, it comes down to the Donaldson. No, I'm not interested in Jordan Davison. He's splitting too much work. Like, yes, he scored 2 touchdowns. I just don't like the work. And I think USC's defense is better than Minnesota, better than Wisconsin, better than Rutgers, better than not as good as Indiana, but still, you kind of get it. Better than Penn State's, better than Oregon State's, better than Northwest. Like, this is probably the 3rd best defense they're going to face all year, behind Iowa and Indiana, in my opinion. This defense is actually solid. It put the clamps on Iowa last week on the ground, which I was surprised by especially late in that game. The second half, they didn't give them anything. So defense pretty stout there. Actually pretty positive on that defense. Tight pool. We're going tight pool. Just kind of gut check Saturday. All right, wide receivers. I'll be honest, guys. I don't care. So they're saying that, yeah, see, I don't think either of the wide receivers for Ohio State play. That's why I'm saying this is a weird slate. I don't trust any of the Cardinal Tate or Jeremiah Smith. I'm just ignoring them. They don't exist. So we're going to talk about one guy later, but there's some injury news and notes to go through. But I'm not even going to talk about them. So they're gone. They just don't exist for me. Top play on the slate all across the board. Better than quarterback. Better than any running back. It's not close. We're going back to my man, Skylar Bell. Last time we went to him, he was 6,900 against Duke. Dropped 32 for me. This week, he's 7,400. Has a better matchup. FAU is awful on defense. He's got over a 27-point projection at 7,400. Quite literally the highest projected player on this slate at 7,400. So lock him in. I love playing him and Cam Edwards. I think they are great plays together. So playing them two, I'm perfectly happy with it. Normally, I wouldn't want to play a running back and a wide receiver on the same team unless they were correlating plays. In this sense, the offense flows through those two players. It's kind of why I don't like Fagnano, because the offense flow. Like, if he's throwing it to Edwards or Bell. I'd rather just take those two and just light up the scoreboard. 99%, like, I think 90% of their points are going to come from these two. So just give me them. Now, I will play some Fagnano because it makes sense, but that's kind of where we're at. All right. Core play number 2. It's going to make complete sense. I love this game. Easton Messer is an absolute target hog. They're going to chuck it 50 times in this spot. We've seen UConn get dominated by other passing attacks. They get beat up on a little bit. And FAU's an air raid offense. I said before the season I expected over 100 catches for Easton Messer. Look at the catch counts. 15, 11. He's got multiple 9s and 8s in here. The man's starts with a 10-point score, basically. So give me this kid. I think he's a great slot player, and I don't think UConn can stop anything in through the air. I'm going to buy into it. I want pieces of it. Messer is a great play, in my opinion. So I'm perfectly happy with that one because they're going to chuck the football. Core play number 3. I talked about it the other day. That's why I said these are the 3 best plays on the slate. Chris Bell is an insane play. Now, it's not because his floor is great. He hasn't played well the last 4 weeks. He's been terrible. I think SMU is a great matchup. And he has the ceiling to go double-digit catches and 180 yards in multiple scores. So I'm not going to get away from this. I'm just going to keep buying into it. I've lost on this one. I've lost on this one. I've lost on this one. And I've lost on this one. I've lost on the last 4 weeks because I keep buying into this, because I know this is what a Jeff Brom number one wide receiver is capable of, is 30 plus points and winning you a slate. So you keep buying it until you win it. So I'm going to keep buying it. He's going to keep being in play. Granted, I could put him here, and then you could throw in Miller Moss or whoever, somebody at a 6K quarterback, and make it work. It's not quite where I'm going, but you're going to see in a minute what we're going to do here. So you could technically do that. I think Chris Bell is a great play. Great play. No issues whatsoever playing that. So those are our 3 core plays. All right, tournament options. I would tell you, I think Bell is the highest owned receiver and maybe even player on this slate for good reason. I thought about being able to put Chris Bell as a tournament pivot, but I made him a core play. I thought Messer is an easy option as a core play. That tells me that all of this ownership up top is going to go to Bell, and Messer. And I don't think any of the ownership maybe, or not as much as could or should, will go to Mekhi Lemon, who has a similar ceiling at 10 for 150, no doubt about it. Now, Oregon is statistically, on paper, a tough defense. But they haven't really faced a good offense outside of Indiana. And Indiana was able to get guys loose on the back end. So I would expect that Mekhi Lemon can get loose on the back end and create some chunk plays. So I don't think playing Lemon's a bad idea. I'm very open to it. And I think that Maeva is good enough to be able to sustain him, no doubt about it. So I think he's a great tournament option, tournament pivot from your Messers or your Bells. Not necessarily Skyler. I think you're going to want to pair him with at least one of, if not 2 of these higher end options, but he's a good tournament pivot. Now, the ultimate tournament pivot is going with an Arch Manning Ryan Wingo stack. Wingo's going to get a massive amount of targets. The $1 million question is does his hands work this week? Because he is a master at dropping footballs. If he could somehow reel in 8 for 150 and 2, you're laughing all the way to the bank. I think it's in the realm of possibility, given the target volume that he's been getting. So if I'm playing Arch, I think dropping down from a Bell or a Chris Bell or a Messer to the Ryan Wingo status, and then playing him with a Skylar Bell or a Chris Bell makes a ton of sense in that spot, trying to get a little bit different. You could also go really cheap at running back and then make it work, yada, yada. So a lot of very good options in that sense, but the top end is certainly dominated by your Skylar Bell, Chris Bell, the Ring My Bell brothers, Easton Messer, and Mekhi Lemon for me. I'm out on the Ohio State guys. I'm not super interested in Malachi Toney. We got lucky that he even got that 24 last week because those 2 touchdowns were late. He did have a touchdown call back in that one. I just think they're going to be able to run the football in Virginia Tech, and I prefer to play Pringle through it. And I don't trust Carson Beck in any sense of the word. And I kind of hope they lose reality just because I don't want Miami in the playoff. All right. Other guys that we're looking at. So let's go through the let's just go through the rest of the pool. So I think it's important just to look at these. Let's just look at these plays from a pairing standpoint, because it's important to look at it that way instead. All right. On the Louisville side, if I'm pairing Bell with Moss, Hudson is my preferred bring back. He's the very clear number 1 for this team. I don't love playing it. it's not my favorite play, but I understand it. So I think Louisville's got a good enough pass defense that I'm okay with it. But I don't love it at 5,300. Will I play some of it? Sure. Am I super interested in it? Not really. It's not my favorite. You know, if I need a punt option, there's really only one guy sub 4K that I'm super into. Excuse me. It's Keelan Marion. I keep mentioning him every single week. He keeps delivering lately. The target volume's up. He's getting a ton of run. I really do think this kid's coming on strong. Excuse me. Man, I went to breakfast with my wife this morning. I'm yawning up a storm too. Got up 3 hours ago. So yeah. Marion is my favorite option, sub 4K. They're finally starting to price him up a little bit more. He has upside, he has ceiling, he has good floor. We're getting there. We're getting there, Myron. We're getting there. Because you know where I'm going with that. All right. On the Ohio State end, if I think that neither one of Smith or Tate are playing, I'm not that interested in Claire. I will go to Brandon Ennis. I talked about this the other day. Brandon Ennis is a former 5-star #1 overall recruit in the country. Buy into it. He's not bad. Just because he's the third guy in the room does not mean he's bad. Mylan Graham would be my second favorite option in this offense. So I would go Ennis, then Graham, but I do have interest in each of them in this spot. I think Baylor's important to buy into a little bit, especially if you end up wanting to play Sawyer Robertson. If you're playing Sawyer Robertson on DK, I prefer Cameron for the target volume, and I need to know the impact of this because I think this is an extremely important news note. Ashton Hawkins threw a punch and was ejected. I saw it. He threw a punch, and it was stupid. If Ashton Hawkins is out, I have a ton of interest in Cole Wilson at this price tag at 4,100 because he's going to assume all of the work that Hawkins had, and it's going to get him on the field more, which is going to get him more target volume. He's scored in 3 of the last 4 games. I'm super interested in Cole Wilson at 4,100 if I get notes that Hawkins is suspended or out for this game this week. I'm super interested there. Fafita, we already know. If you're playing Fafita, you stack it with Hudson. You do not play anybody else. Everybody else is a trap. You only play Hudson. That's it. Yeah, Josh Cameron. Yeah, Myron, here's the problem. As soon as you buy into that, of Josh Cameron having 20 targets, whatever, Josh Cameron is going to end up just destroying you the next week. This is what he does. I mean, 13 of 20 targets is insane. They threw the ball like 60 times. But the problem is he's going to do like 4 for 34 this week because that's what he does. Like I called this game, this 9 for 151. He goes off for these games 2 to 3 times a year, and we've gotten 2. I knew another one was coming. I just didn't know when. But I know my man Josh Cameron. That's what he does. Every once in a while, he pops off. If you're playing Fafita, you have to play Hudson, in my opinion, because you can say that, well, he hasn't gotten there a ton. Last week he got there. It was 8 for 123. He's just come on really strong late in the season with 4 or more catches. I would say that if Fafita is going to win you a tournament, somebody's going to have to get there, and I would expect it to be Hudson to be the one that gets you there. Wasim is my favorite of the secondary FAU guys. I think he's most likely to, he's second on the team in targets. I know Platt's right there. It's really choose your own adventure. I mean, I can't tell you which one it's going to be. I don't know. There's some of me that says that Henry's moderately interesting. I don't know. I could see people going to Henry at 34. If you had to punt, I could see doing that. He does project fairly okay. I'm avoiding all the rest of the UConn guys. Not super interested there. On the Texas end, we talked about Wingo. If I was double stacking, I would go with Mosley personally. Or if you didn't want to play Wingo and you said he just sucks, Mosley's gotten 7 targets per game over his last 3. I think he's an interesting pairing only with Arch. Otherwise, I don't particularly want to play him. This is high floor, low ceiling. DeAndre Moore. I don't really love that. Like, I'm not super into it. Now, you're going to say, you probably are going to say, who do you pair Cutter Boley with? It's pretty easy. It's Kendrick Law. So, former Alabama transfer player. 3 touchdowns in 2 games, 100 yards in 2 of his last 4. I mean, he's just been good, man. He's just been good. So I'm going to buy it. I'll go Kendrick Law. I have no issues with that. I really like that as a play. It's one of my favorite spots. So I don't mind playing Boley with Law. I don't think you have to play Boley with anybody, but I'm going to play Boley with Law personally. You know, I think it all comes down to double stacks in this spot. Same thing. We talked about Gio Lopez. Give me Ship and Paysor. I'll pay both of them. You know, they're both getting plenty of targets. Paysor's been getting more and more targets as the season's gone on. Ship's been the number 1 target for most of the season. I think Lopez and the double is a very fun, different way to play this against the Duke pass funnel defense. It's absolutely terrible. You kind of know already where to go with Duke stuff. For my money, I would avoid Barkate because I think Bill takes away Barkate. And then you go with like a Quayshawn Brown and Anthony or Higgins. That's dealer's choice for me, but Higgins more likely to, or Anthony more likely to score. Higgins more likely to catch multiple passes. I think you go Brown, Anthony, and that's your different way to play that. I will play some Kenyon Sadiq as long as Decorian Moore's out. I still think Decorian Moore will be out, so I will play some Sadiq. He's kind of a last piece in that range. I think he's got the massive ceiling for 100 yards, multiple scores, because he's just an absolute weapon. But I'm kind of avoided that game. I love that game. Myron, I love that game. I think it is one of my favorite. I think playing that with like Pavia in here is one of my favorite ways to play this. You could go down, like there's so many ways to play the thing. I don't love the Vanderbilt wide receivers. Like maybe you could convince me on Stowers. I'm not super into it, but I would rather just play Pavia by himself, and I'll find a way to make the wide receivers work just because the upside of these top end guys is so much higher. And I'd rather play Kendrick Law in that game. I'm not playing TCU wideouts. I can tell you that right now. Amari Thomas versus Tanner Kozel. So if you're playing Connor Wegman, I don't think you need to stack him because we're playing him for his running. I prefer Thomas because Thomas has far more upside. The floor probably goes to Kozel, and TCU is absolutely horrendous against the tight end. I understand the McGowan stuff. I just don't want to because I want to. I will. I'm open to it. I'm just not quite there. I'm really debating Kozel versus Amari Thomas because of the pricing. Because like in this sense, I could go like I could definitely go Amari Thomas and something, or I could go Kozel or whatever. Like they're very easy to fit into these spots and make it work, no doubt about it. Very interested in that type of stuff. Trying to get in Amari Thomas, Kozel. I think both are great plays. I think you can play them both. I think you could play one. You could play one in any lineup. You could play stacked with Wiegman. I like any of that stuff, no doubt about it. And then I'm full avoid the pass game in this spot. So if we were rounding this team out, you're going to know exactly where I was going. Here you go. Boley and Law with the Veltkamp, Messer, Skylar Bell, Cam Edwards, stacking up the game with like a 70 over under. It's 66.5, whatever. And then I get Wayshawn Parker along with Gerard Pringle. I think this is a extremely well-built team and very difficult to say is anything wrong with it. So I love this roster. I love this team. This is my favorite right out the gate. Favorite way to play. I think you're going to want to play iterations of this Belt Camp stuff. I think you can go. I've done it also with a second iteration, but that was a Ficklin team. It was going to be Kedrick Criscano here with like Brandon Ennis instead of Kendrick Law, and then Bird Ficklin over Cutter Boley. Now that is not a possibility potentially, now that would be my favorite team if I knew that Bird Ficklin was going to start. But it's going to take some time, and we're going to have to figure this out. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at right now from a pool perspective. Like I said, I'm going to lean into the two Bells and Messer at wide receiver. And then otherwise, it's going to be, those are like my core stick them in plays. And then otherwise, it's trying to stack with your quarterback for the most part. And then Cam Edwards and Pringle are my favorite running back plays. It's not close. Like Parker, will maybe end up on Bo Jackson. Like Riscano, the best out of the Arizona guys. I think they're a GPP winning combination. And then it just comes down to what do you want to play at quarterback? It's a very weird slate as far as playing quarterbacks go. So I'll be back with FanDuel tomorrow. I've already got that super narrowed down. Did most of that last night and into today. And yeah, so I'll be back with that. And we'll chit chat on that one. And then I'm going to keep looking for my news and notes for my injury stuff. So hopefully I can start building here pretty soon. Otherwise, I'm going to have to log all these teams and just type them out and then eventually enter them later, which I don't particularly want to do. I'd rather just get them entered so I can get through them. All right. I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Good luck on Thursday night football tonight if you got teams in that. And good luck on the showdown slate for college tonight. I've got my entry in already. So I will see you guys tomorrow before we get to live